Now, what about like when y'all investigated the church where Jim Jones, went when he was a child? To go into a church that's with the lights out is so creepy.
It is.
I don't know why. If your imagination just runs kind of crazy, but so how was that investigating the church? And do you feel like he is still attached?
We wanted to do a story on Jim Jones years ago. The church had been desanctioned, so it was no longer acting as a church. It no longer held that status. It's probably, I would say, at least top 5 most active places we've ever been.
Hello, everyone, and my name is Misti Gaither, and welcome to Quest, a journey into true crime and the paranormal. I am so excited because I have with me, one of the Fourman Brothers of Living Dead Paranormal and Paranormal Nightmare, and you will find them on YouTube.
We appreciate you having us, and we're very excited to be on with you, so thank you.
You're very welcome. Now, for those of you who may not know, if you go on YouTube and you'll see the Paranormal Nightmare channel and also the Chasing Evil, and we're going to talk about those 2 shows in length. And I really think it's cool because my show is about the true crime and the paranormal, and it's not every day that I get to speak to someone and get to merge both of the 2. Let's start off. Now, you have 2 brothers. We have Sean and Rocky. And is Rocky the oldest?
Yeah, Rocky's the oldest. I'm the middle child, and Sean is the youngest. Somehow, Sean ended up being the biggest brother out of the 3 of us, but he's definitely the youngest.
Now, one of the things that the Fourman brothers do is they go all over the country and help to get their homes and their lives back. Because if you haven't never had a haunting, if you've never been affected by the paranormal in a negative way, that is something that you can't just readily just walk away from or fix. From what I understand is y'all had experiences when you were younger. Could you tell me some about that and how that your experiences back then led y'all to help people today?
We grew up in a very rural part of Ohio, a very poor family. So our mother was always going to garage sales and yard sales. And one summer she came home from a yard sale and, we were unboxing stuff. And at the bottom of this box, I remember there was a Ouija board. So we didn't think much of it. And then there was a few weeks later, our family was gone. It was just the 3 of us out in the middle of nowhere. So we decided to get the Ouija board out. We lit candles, did the whole 9 yards, not knowing anything about, we literally knew nothing about the paranormal. After that, we started to have these small experiences where these little things would happen around the house and you would kind of dismiss as, that could be something normal. And then it gradually got worse and worse. Before we knew it, we had a full-fledged haunting, anywhere from rooms that didn't have lights, had I remember this big blue light was always shining out of this one room. Cabinet doors opening and closing. We would see dark shadows, hear disembodied voices. And the one thing that really stuck with us was how it messed up the dynamics of our family. There began to be a lot of anger, a lot of fighting. And we dealt with that for about 3 years before we moved out of the house. Fortunately, everything stopped. As we got older and started having families, we still had questions as far as what we had experienced because it was such a traumatic event. I know there were times when Sean we'd be sitting there watching TV and Sean would just get up and take off running across the house and just fall down and his eyes would roll in the back of his head and he would go into convulsions. I would have these horrible nightmares that I was trapped in this fireball and I would wake up and I would be in the hospital packed down with ice, running 103, 104 fever. And the doctors could never explain what was going on. They were running all these tests on our brains and, hooking us up to all these probes. And so, it was literally, we went from your normal family to a really horrible existence that, pretty much ripped our family apart. Through that whole experience, my brothers and I, we'd always promised each other that we would stick together no matter what. fast forward several years later, we were investigating this place, and I remember the three of us were staying in this dark hallway, just scared shitless. And it sounded like these footsteps were walking straight down the hallway towards us and literally stopped right in front of us. After that, we were just hooked. So that was kind of the journey that we had, was one, to figure out how our family went from being this normal family to opening this Pandora's box and having all this crazy stuff happen. I remember the very first family we helped, we brought somebody else in to cleanse the house, and they had called us and said that, their life was much more peaceful and the haunting had seemed to end. And that's kind of where our passion grew for helping people. And I think what was really important for us is we could relate what the families were going through. So they would sit down and tell us, how their family's being destroyed and all these different things. It was relatable to us because we had experienced that exact same thing. And that's really what drove our passion, was just helping people. The one thing I've learned over the years is just, a lot of times people want just to be listened to, because with the paranormal, often there's just so many skeptics and people want to dismiss what people are going through. Yeah, and then that's our main passion, is to help as many families as we possibly can, regardless if they have paranormal going on or not, just being there for them, being able to listen to them and help them find answers.
Well, that's one of the things that I noticed, that, especially you, that like when you're doing it, when you're interviewing a family member to tell you about the haunting and everything on the shows. And I noticed that you mostly 90 something percent of the time you're listening and you let them go on. You're not worried about, we need to cut this off now. And I mean, some will talk a long time because you can tell that they haven't had anybody to listen to them, and so they kind of pour their hearts out. And I really admired you for that, because that's what you do, is you listen, and I can tell that it means a lot to whomever that's doing the talking, because, like you said, not everybody has that support and
Correct.
a sounding board to go on. Not only do y'all go in and investigate the home, but you also do, like, especially with the cleansing and everything, it's kind of a religious based effort, as far as at the end when you pray and you do your walkthrough and your blessing, and you do the cross and everything. Is that very, very important, like in your daily lives, or is it just something that you use for the paranormal?
Even at the age of, 9, 10, 11 years old, we didn't know anything about religion. We didn't know anything about Jesus or anything like that. It was actually an elderly couple down the road from us that took us to church for the first time. And it was this whole new world opened up to us. So that's our first experience. It wasn't something that, we didn't grow up in a religious household or anything like that. When we first started doing the family stuff, like I said, we always brought other people in to do the cleansing because that was just something we weren't comfortable with. And over time, I just took bits and pieces of what they were doing, did a lot of research. We work with a lot of priests and different pastors around the country, and, just mentored with them. Then we started doing the cleansing. Originally, we didn't put the cleansing on the episodes. It was just something that I thought was a private moment for us, for the family. We started to get more questions about, how do we get rid of it and all this stuff. And we started to share a little bit of the cleansing. But yeah, faith is definitely something that's important to us now. So yeah, I would definitely say it's important for us. With the families, you meet all kinds of families. You have atheists, you have Catholic, you have Christians, whatever the scope is. We always try to respect their beliefs and just explain to them, this is how we do things. This is what has worked for us in the past. This is what we're comfortable with. And some families choose to be part of that, and other families choose not to. And we completely just leave that up to them.
Y'all have been on YouTube for how long? 10 years? It's been a while, or has it been like 10 years that y'all have been doing this?
Yeah, we started on YouTube back in 2005, I believe. That was with our original channel. And it was really just, like I said, because when we first started, we knew nothing about the paranormal. We didn't know how to document evidence. We didn't know what we were looking for when we were reviewing evidence. A friend of mine had contacted me and said, hey, there's this new thing called YouTube that came out. Maybe just put some videos on there and just see what people think. So the first couple videos we uploaded on there was just like short little 4 or 5 minute EVP videos. I kind of put them up there and just forgot about it. Went back a couple weeks later, and one of the videos had like 500,000 views.
Wow.
Like I said, it was like literally 6 minutes of us talking and getting these EVP responses. And people just wanted to see more of the investigation. So we gradually went to like 10 minutes, and things just kind of progressed from there.
So that's been about 20 years ago.
Oh yeah, we've been
Yeah.
at this for about 20 years.
If you're into binging and watching a lot of episodes, you definitely want to check out Paranormal Nightmare, because they drop a new episode, usually every Friday, and then in between in the week you'll have like some lives or some updates or some shorts
Right.
that y'all do during the week. Now, also, I noticed that back in 2017, we had Libby German and Abigail Williams that got murdered in February 14th, 13th of 2017. And it wasn't too long after that, maybe a month or so, I think, that y'all went to Libby's mom and did like an investigation and did, like the spirit box and stuff. Now, you also did an update. Now, how was that? Because at the end, y'all actually went to the bridge, and the mom was there too. Can you tell me about that moment when you were there with her and kind of, because maybe that was the first time she had been there, or she was just in that area?
Yeah, we'd started up, I think it was back in 2014. We started up a series called Chasing Evil, where we would use the interaction, the communication with the spirit world to hopefully solve some of these cases, these cold cases. So we'd shot an entire season prior to the Delphi, and we were getting amazing results. And when Delphi happened, I had called Rocky one afternoon and told him that there was these 2 girls missing in Delphi. Can he run a session? And then later that night, they were found, of course. I reached out to Libby's parents, and I was surprised that no news media or anybody had reached out to her. They were more focused on the local family versus her when she was living down in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And she agreed for us to come down to Kentucky. We were the very first ones to interview her at the time. And then we went to Delphi and did some filming, and we brought her back up there with us a few weeks later. Chasing Evil is a lot different, obviously, because of the subject matter, because parent losing their child, that's just something that you can't really comprehend unless you've been through that. So from the emotional side of things, it was very difficult to experience. And then, of course, you never know what's going to come across the spirit box, and they're standing right there. I just remember we'd gotten so much evidence, and none of it really made sense because law enforcement had not released any information.
Right.
And as the years that went by, they've released more information, and a lot more of what we documented makes sense now. Yeah, Chasing Evil is definitely like a second passion of ours, but it's just very powerful when you could take, like with the Jamie Beasley episode,
Right.
Here this young lady has been missing for several months. And to go from that, working with the family from, her daughter's missing, nobody has any answers, to, at the end of the episode, we're able to be there with the family as they lay their daughter to rest, and having that closure. It's just something that you can't explain, just the power of that.
Now, when y'all were doing the Jamie Beasley case, and it would, the spirit box, it was like she was actually telling you where her body was. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of times what happens is you don't know what's going on at the moment, what's being said, because you have to go edit it and listen to it in the headphones and everything much better. But where she was found, that was the street that she kept saying on the spirit box. And it wasn't, a couple of weeks after y'all investigated that she was found, like right, I'm trying to remember the street name, I can't, but it was right in that area of her boyfriend's home that she was found, by that street that she kept saying.
Everything was leading us back to his house. And we had the canine team there with us, which is an amazing team out of Indianapolis, some of the best. We wanted them to go on the property around his house, but obviously they couldn't for legal reasons. that day I believe that we could have definitely found her. Yeah, it's just weird to think that 3 or 4 months somebody could literally be anywhere in the country. To have the spirits constantly lead you back to one location and then that be where she's found. I mean, to me, that's extremely compelling.
After y'all do your investigation, you give a copy of the transcript or the recordings to the local law enforcement?
Yeah, we'll go out and we'll do our spirit box sessions. And like you said, a lot of times you don't know what's coming across until you go back and analyze it. The very first case we did was up in Michigan with the Nevaeh Buchanan case.
Mm-hmm.
At first, law enforcement really didn't want anything to do with it. But as word began to circulate throughout law enforcement, they became very open to it. And since then, we've worked with different agencies all over the country. Like with Christopher Young, when law enforcement contacted us and said, hey, can you come see if you can figure anything out? I think it was within 2 hours of us running sessions there, they were able to find his body.
Now, about the Nevaeh Buchanan story, that was just one that really just was so filled with emotion, and to know that she had been buried alive, and just the way that she was found by the gentleman that was fishing. And I just don't know, has there been an arrest made in that case?
Really, the way that I think they left it was the gentleman that we thought was responsible for it and the guy that they thought was responsible for it is already serving a life sentence. So I don't know that they wanted to go through another trial. Once it gets to the legal side of things, we kind of step away. We're done with it. Yeah, definitely the Nevaeh case was one of the first cases where I remember the ride home after doing the interviews and the spirit box sessions and being down there where they found her body. I thought, and at the time, my daughters were about her age, and I thought, I don't know if I could do this just because of those circumstances, how it's just horrible to know what happens to that little girl. And so that was a tough one for us, but it's all about, anything with the paranormal, it's really about helping people find answers, get answers. So if it's working with a family on a haunting, or if it's working with a family with chasing evil, ultimately the main goal is to help them find answers, however that may be.
Let's talk about one more case in Chasing Evil, and that's the Aaliyah Lunsford case. That was, I don't think she hasn't been found. And the mom's been arrested for the murder.
Yeah.
And, she will not give the location up. But, I remember that when y'all were going out, and it was like the way that she was killed was said through the spirit box, the slat. They tell you to take left, go right by the school, and just, some of the responses that y'all get are so clear, as far as in the Nevaeh Buchanan case. And she was given first and last names, and to me that's just amazing. And I think personally that law enforcement, they need to pay more attention to what's being said, on these cases, because it doesn't hurt anything to listen and to have an open mind, because, there's answers there evidently.
That's the thing, when we work with law enforcement is, we'll explain to them, this is what we've documented. We don't, obviously you can't use that in a court of law, but if this can help you guys lead you into finding more information or finding what happened to the missing person. With Lunsford, I think because her body was out in the woods, and it's a very, very remote area. I remember when we were out there filming and running spirit box sessions, there must have been a bear track like this big around. Wow. So if you imagine a little girl like that out in the middle of the woods with all the predators out there, and law enforcement, basically towards the end of the episode, you see where they kind of know exactly where, she took the body. Mm-hmm. Even with their searches with canines, they were unable to discover anything. So there's always a point in time where if somebody's been missing, if their body's been hid in the woods or something like that, 10, 15 years passes, chances of you finding any remains is nearly impossible.
Right. Let's talk about another case, another episode that y'all did, and it was about another, young child. And this, if you can watch this episode, you will be just totally, just so, I mean, it just amazes me. The Oakley Snow episode.
Mm-hmm.
That was amazing. I mean, y'all got a lot of wonderful evidence and footage. Now, Bree was the lady that was affected and whose home that, y'all were investigating. And from what I understood, that Bree was one of the people who went to the abandoned or crack house where Oakley was found in the dresser drawer. And I think
Right.
was she even 2? I'm trying to remember exactly
Yeah,
how old she was, around 2.
She went missing. I think it was maybe a month before her second birthday.
Okay. And so Bree was one of the individuals, I believe, that went up there. And ever since that she came back to her home, she was having like a lot of activity and just really out the box. And not only did she have the activity, but it was like that she was under some kind of oppression.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you want to go and say possession, but I feel like she was at least oppressed with whatever was in that home. And, Oakley followed her back, or whoever the spirit was. Now, what I don't understand, and I don't think that maybe y'all did either, was I don't understand why that the other paranormal team burnt her bear.
I'm not for sure. I don't often know why some of the paranormal groups out there do some of the things they do.
Right.
And it may just, maybe they thought they were doing the right thing. Maybe they were advised to do that.
Right.
So I don't want, say anything bad about that. But,
Sure.
Like we went into the case, all we knew was Bree was having this experience, and we knew a little bit about the backstory was that they're at this abandoned house where this murder took place. And that was basically all we knew. We didn't know anything about, a baby being in a dresser or anything like that until we started the interview. There's just cases like that where, sometimes you're trying all night long to try to make that connection to communicate with spirits. And then there's other cases you go into and it's just like you're sitting across from somebody having this conversation. So yeah, that case was another one that was just very difficult. And I think that trial's coming up here pretty soon.
And I'm not trying to talk negative about the team that burned the bear or anything, but they had
Right.
the footage of when they were burning the bear of an actual spirit that was like running around crazy, and you could see it. Do you feel like that was Oakley, or do you think that maybe was another spirit? Because it was just, the footage was just crazy.
Yeah, it could have been either or, with Oakley being so young, that's with like going back to Chasing Evil just for a second to explain this, is especially when we're dealing with like the young victims. When we work on Chasing Evil, we're not necessarily trying to communicate with that missing person. We never tell a family 100% your loved one has passed. I always say until I have 100% proof that the individual's dead, then I just keep out hope. So when we run those sessions, we're literally trying to speak to any spirit that may have information. So that was kind of the same thing that we dealt with the Oakley cases. We weren't going in there necessarily to communicate with Oakley or anything like that. We were trying to figure out what was attached itself to Bree and what was haunting her home. And it just so happens all this other stuff came across.
Yeah, because you even got an EVP, I think it was the ghost tube, that said scratch Bree.
Mm-hmm.
And it said love Bree, and then it said scratch Bree, which it
Right.
had scratch. She had received scratch. I'm definitely will be following that trial to to see how that turns out. Now, what about like when y'all investigated the church where Jim Jones, went when he was a child? That was a lot of activity too. You got the name, Jim brought up several times. How was that like being in a church, investigating a church? To me, I was raised in church, but to go into a church that's with the lights out is so creepy. It is. I don't know why, if your imagination just runs kind of crazy, but whenever I'd walk into a pitch black church, I would just be like, oh God, this is bad. But
Mm-hmm.
Jim Jones, that was definitely a story. And they have Lynn, is it in Lynn, Indiana?
Yeah, okay. In Indiana.
Okay. And so, how was that investigating the church? And do you feel like he is still attached?
Yeah, we typically do not investigate churches or cemeteries or anything like that because I guess you never want to be disrespectful, you know. But this happened to be, we wanted to do a story on Jim Jones years ago, and it just so happens a friend of ours had purchased the church, and we said, yeah, we'll come up there and do it. The church had been desanctioned,
Hmm.
so it was no longer acting as a church. It no longer held that status. It's probably, I would say, at least top five most active places we've ever been. And just the energy you get in there. And I think that's a lot of the times it's not necessarily as Jim Jones's spirit still there, but you had all these people in the congregation that knew the family, knew Jim Jones, were friends with Jim Jones at the time, because this was prior to him going to Indianapolis and starting his own church. So I think often you pick up on that energy. It doesn't necessarily mean that his spirit has to be there. I believe spirits can travel to wherever they want to be.
Sure.
Some spirits are attached to certain locations for whatever reason, but yeah, it's just amazing that you get in there and catching the image on the back stairwell. Actually, we didn't even know we caught that. We were actually live on YouTube, and we started getting all these messages like, "Hey, there was somebody standing in the stairwell. Go back and watch this." Just hundreds of messages started coming across, so we went back and watched it. And if you put a side by side of the image that we caught, and then the image of Jim Jones as a young boy, which he would have been that age when he was at the church, they look identical.
There's a case that's been going on for about 3 years from now. I think that y'all touched on it briefly. I think y'all were investigating a school about it had a title about summer wells.
The school itself had nothing to do with Summer Wells.
Right.
That right about the time I believe Summer Wells had went missing, and a lot of people were reaching out to us, obviously because they know that we do Chasing Evil, and it just so happens we weren't getting like a whole lot of activity inside this school. So I thought, let's just do a remote session here and just see what comes across. So that's kind of how Summer Wells was tied into that case.
So many unsolved cases with young kids and young children, and it's just sad. But I really appreciate y'all being the voice, and because not only are y'all trying to find answers, but you're also trying to find peace for the family members, the friends, but not only them, but also for those that have passed.
That's the main thing with Chasing Evil is, one, a lot of these cases aren't like in the mainstream news. With like Aaliyah Lunsford, I don't know that that ever went like nationally
Hmm.
with her case. It really just seems like, depending on what your area code is when you get the national exposure. So there's so many cases with missing people, missing children, don't get the exposure that I believe that they should. And that's one thing that's super important to us is just, bringing that case to the forefront and letting people, hear about it, research it, give us their feedback on what they think happened or whatever. So yeah, that's probably one of the most important keys, other than finding out what actually happened, is just the exposure part of it. So
I was talking about the answers and the peace and stuff, and you think about I believe it's the April Pennington case in Paintsville. I think that from your investigation and everything, it was determined that it was an accident. And so, even though, the mom, was leaning to, of course, you think something, bad may have happened. But because of your investigation, it was found that it was nothing, of the sort, but it was just an accident.
I think that's probably the first time I've ever had a mom pissed off at me,
Hmm.
uh, because they have their theories, and I understand where they're coming from. After reading all the police reports, we had people in the medical field go over all the autopsies with the spirit box session. I interviewed people that were there. Everything was leading us to it just being a horrible, tragic accident, which, anybody that lives around lakes and stuff, that happens. It seems like every year these accidents happen on the water.
Right.
So that was just hard to sit down with her because she had spent the last 10 years believing that these specific people murdered her daughter, and she wanted to bring them to justice. And for me to have to tell her that, we believe that it's just an accident was, and I don't even know, it's still today, maybe she doesn't believe us. And because we had to learn like early on, if you take on a case with chasing evil, you don't want to have like subconsciously this theory in your head.
Right.
Like, okay, I think this happened. Because what happens is when you run the spirit box sessions, you will subconsciously listen for things to fit your theory versus keeping an open mind and whatever comes across comes across. And then you just have to, go with it from there. That's what we felt. That's where all the evidence was leading us. So that's, where we left the case.
Right. Let me ask you to talk about. I remember, and I know about the cases. I may not always know like the title of them, but I know the cases pretty much. And there was one case that I remember that you were telling the spirit, leave them alone, and that you would take it on.
Yeah, that was with Bree. The funny thing is, we've done probably a little over 2,000 cases, probably close to 2,400 cases. Investigators can like remember like every case they've ever done and everything that's ever happened, which is weird. But yeah, Bree's case was, we went there initially and did the investigation and everything was good at first. And then the family continued to try to communicate with the spirits for whatever reason. Bree, which I don't want to say a whole lot about it, Bree's had a rough life. It took us back to our childhood and the things that we went through. And I just feel that with me being, older, stronger, and being able to handle this stuff better than what somebody her age would be, and for whatever reason, I just felt compelled to take all that negative energy, whatever was there, on myself, and then I would deal with it afterwards. But, I think we just wanted to make sure that she was okay.
Right, and I understand your reasoning behind it. I just remember that when you said those words, I remember when I was watching, I was like, oh, I felt really, like uncertain, like, I felt really bad that you had said that, because we all know what comes with it when you invite something like that to, to kind of shift their focus on you. And I think for a while that you did have kind of a tough time.
2 to 3 weeks, had extreme nightmares, just deep depression, anxiety, stuff like that. In the end, it all worked out. And, if I had it to do over again, I would do it again. Like I said, it was just in the moment.
Right.
I just felt like I was, you have these two choices, and I was really more upset with the parents. And, we still talk with the parents. I think they're great people. But at that time, I was just upset with them because they were putting, their child in that situation. And here we have to come in and try to clean up that mess. And it's just like sometimes working with these people, working with homeowners, it can be like just beating your head against the wall because you can't get through to them that, if you continue to do this, some people can investigate the paranormal and all that stuff and there's no issues whatsoever. But there's other people that just have that addictive personality where they're more susceptible to these attachments. And that's what I was really trying to explain to them is, you guys have to just let anything paranormal go. I think people just get so addicted to the paranormal and communicating with the other side. And, you investigate, right?
Yes.
So, people that investigate understand that, but it has to be in a healthy way. And some people just do it in a very unhealthy way. And their life is in a bad situation already. And then they open up this Pandora's box with, trying to communicate with the dead for whatever reason. And it just, sometimes it's very frustrating, especially like I said, when you work with families and you advise them on the steps to take and they don't listen to you. And that's one case that really has always stuck with us, especially me, is, just wanting, because we literally want everybody to be happy, everybody to be safe, to live their life without all this negative demonic stuff. So,
hey everybody, this is Misti Gaither, and guess what? We have merch now. That's right, Quest, a journey into true crime and the paranormal. We have t-shirts, hoodies, stickers, mugs, just about anything that you would want has the Quest logo on it. Be sure to click on the link below in the comments, and it'll take you right to the site, and you can just pick out what you like and, buy your friends something, buy your family members something. It'll be great. Quest is sponsored by Chef Ron's Gumbo Stop. For award-winning gumbo by an award-winning chef, be sure to check out Chef Ron's Gumbo Stop. It is in Metairie. And just today, it was released that Chef Ron was named the best jambalaya in our area. So that's pretty cool. They also have bread pudding, and be sure to go and check them out. We also have the Haunted Hotel that's on Ursuline Street in New Orleans. And let me tell you, I have stayed there several times. I have investigated there several times. It is very haunted. It is where allegedly the Axeman of New Orleans stayed while he went on his murderous spree. So be sure to go on to hauntedhotelnola.com and book your stay. Book a night, book 2 nights, because you will not be disappointed. We also have Area 51 Gallery for all your merch needs. Rocket, he does our buttons and our magnets. So be sure to go in there if you have a crew, a party, an event, just whatever that you need promoted. Be sure to contact Rocket, and he will consult with you, and your event will be unique because he has unique merchandise. Louisiana Pizza Kitchen Uptown, where every Wednesday is Family and Friends Night. They have half off all adult beverages, including bottles of wine. And you know what? You can also go there on Sundays because they have mimosas and Bloody Marys that are just out of this world and at a good price too. So be sure to check out Louisiana Pizza Kitchen. It's the corner of Carrollton and St. Charles right there at the River Bend. We also are sponsored by Louisiana Spirits. It is a paranormal team that encompasses the whole state of Louisiana. So if you are needing an investigation in your home or business, be sure to contact Louisiana Spirits. They have a Facebook page, and they will take care of you. Let's talk about the Alone series for a moment with Omar Gosh. How was that?
Yeah.
Because you and Sean both, for those of you who do not know, Omar Gosh, he has a YouTube channel, and he got several of the paranormal YouTube different ones to go into a location totally by themselves. And that's why it was called Alone. And then it was filmed. And where did y'all go again? Was it?
We were in Hartford City, Indiana. Sean was at the Blackford jail, and then I
Okay.
was at the Speakeasy, which is on the other side of town.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, working with Omar and his team was just a great experience. I love working with other groups out there. The whole Alone thing was more about, challenging yourself to spend the entire night locked inside this building by yourself. And, some of us worked through that fear and made it, and then others made it a couple hours and they were done. I believe it helped us as investigators, push past that fear. Because I remember early on, we would go on investigations and we'd be so scared. We would the three of us would never leave each other.
Right.
And you wouldn't push yourself to go off by yourself or be alone in a location. And then you would leave there and you would have regrets. So eventually we started doing, where we would be more alone inside the house. It was definitely a unique experience.
There's another team that I enjoy watching, and I noticed that they do. I think that they've collaborated with y'all, and y'all kind of, I guess, tell each other about locations and stuff. But Paranormal Quest,
Yeah.
I really, I enjoy watching them too because they're like y'all. They're sincere, and they want to help, and they get good evidence, and so I really enjoy what they do too. And then Amy's Crypt, y'all use the ghost tube, and then y'all have the
Mhm.
SLS and the seer and all the equipment. Because I remember when I first started watching y'all some years ago, y'all had the spirit box, and then what was it, like a baby monitor and stuff, which got really a lot of good evidence because a lot of people do not use that, but y'all did, and y'all got a lot of good things. But now it's you've kind of progressed more into having more equipment, which is cool because you do get more evidence. And with the change and having the more equipment, does it kind of take away from sometimes being quiet and still is a good thing to do when you're investigating, but then also having the equipment to document what you're finding is also cool. So how do you find that happy medium?
Yeah, the equipment's definitely changed over the years. I remember when we first started, we had a video camera and a voice recorder, and that's like literally all we have. I remember when the Spirit Box first came out several years ago, I was like, this has got to be the dumbest thing. So we tried it down in Louisville, Kentucky. And I remember the guy that stayed with us, his name was Richard. And when I was reviewing the Spirit Box session, the male voice came across plain as day and said, "Good luck, Richard, you son of a bitch." I'm thinking, well, that's weird.
Right.
So a couple days later, I called the lady that owns the building. And I said, hey, tell Richard we said thank you for showing us around the building and stuff. And she goes, oh, we had to fire him last week.
What?
What? So that really opened my eyes to the Spirit Box. And so, over the years, just the technology and things have came out. Obviously people see what they're using on like Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters and stuff like that. And that's how a lot of this equipment's introduced to us. Yeah, we're definitely open to trying anything. The same thing with like some of these apps and stuff. The equipment's as good as the person using it, right?
Right.
So, if you use it in a good, responsible way, honest way, then I think it can be beneficial to you. But like anything else, any equipment you're able to manipulate. And if you do that in a very dishonest way, then, what's the point in using it?
Exactly.
So I think it's a good thing now because like before, you would literally sit in a house sometimes, like say if the house wasn't like super active, you may get 2 seconds of activity and then sit there for 3 hours, get 2 seconds. But now you can use different pieces of equipment and just see if the spirits interact more with this piece versus this piece. So you have so many different options to take your investigation. And the three of us, like we have like ADHD real bad. So you'll never see us sitting down doing like a hour-long EVP session or anything like that, just because we have to constantly be moving. And that's really how we've ran our investigations over the years. I think that's what's helped us be more successful as far as documented evidence is like, say if I go into a haunted location and we're walking around and I go into this room and it feels fine. Well, we move on to another room. If it feels fine, we move on to another room. If that room, the hair on the back of your neck stands up, you feel uneasy, then that's where we'll focus our investigation. And we do that throughout the night. Obviously, sometimes if you're in a smaller home, you don't have that option, but that's typically how we do things.
Now, is there a place that you haven't investigated yet that's on your like bucket list?
Yeah, we have not investigated like Mansfield. We've been in Ohio our entire life, and Mansfield Reformatory is up the road from us. So I feel like we hit some of our bucket list investigations early on, like Pennhurst, Waverly Hills, places like that.
Yeah, definitely Waverly Hills is on my bucket list because, I have never seen a team or anybody that goes in there and not get something, some kind of activity. It's just, out the box. Well, it was very nice to meet you, and thank you for so much for being on the show. I hope if y'all ever come the New Orleans way, down this way, that y'all will get in contact with me because, as you know, we have a lot of haunted stuff here in New Orleans. And,
We'll do that for sure.
yeah, that would be really cool. So thank you so much. And to everybody, go on to Paranormal Nightmare and be sure to like and subscribe. And be sure to check out all those wonderful episodes also of Chasing Evil with the Fourman Brothers. You will be entertained. And actually, they do a great job. And I'm real honored to have them on my show. So thank you so much, Josh. It was nice meeting you, I should say. And I hope you will join us again.
Okay, thank you. And you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. And thank you so much for having us on. We really appreciate it.
Very welcome. Everybody, I will see you next week as we do another episode of Quest, a journey into true crime and the paranormal. Thank you.